Throughout history, humans have been intrigued with the concept of flight. The most daring came up with their own inventions to get man into the air. Some of these theories to us today seem logical in nature. Other ideas do not seem so logical. Yet in 1903, the Wright brothers made their famous first flight, paving the way for future aviation. Soon enough, contests began to spring up for the best pilots. In 1910, $50,000 was going to be given to the first man to fly across the United States in 30 days. This challenge was taken up by Cal Rogers in his Vin Fizz Flyer, named after a sponsoring soda pop. Cal Rogers landed 70 times, crashing 16 times on his trip, and unfortunately took 49 days to reach the coast, and tragically crashing and dying in a test run 5 months later. Later on, the Vin Fizz Flyer was salvaged, repaired, and flown again by Jesse Brabazon, my great-great-grandfather. The following are real pictures of him and the famous flyer. In 1927, a man named Charles Lindbergh made the first flight across the Atlantic, flying from New York to Paris in 33 hours aboard his plane, the Spirit of the St. Louis. In the following videos, we see Lindbergh taking off and flying his famous plane on his long and treacherous journey across the Atlantic. Once Lindbergh had made his historic trip across the Atlantic and returned to America, he received a hero's welcome and was given a Medal of Valor. He was an international hero for being the first man to cross the Atlantic in one trip on an airplane. In World War I, airplanes were used for various tasks, including dogfighting and dropping bombs on the opposing troops. After seeing the effectiveness of aviation on the battlefield, General Billy Mitchell of Milwaukee, Wisconsin implored the U.S. to put more funding into its air power, first by staging bombing tests on battleships.
July 1921, an epic chapter from Air Force history. Planes under command of Brigadier General Billy Mitchell proved that warships are vulnerable to attack from the air. The target, a captured German super battleship, the Ostfriesland. Under the hammering of aerial attack, the thought-to-be unsinkable prize of war goes down. Two years later, General Mitchell continued his tests, exploding the myth of battleship invulnerability from the air. The targets, two obsolete men of war, the battleships New Jersey and Virginia. In this bombing demonstration off the Virginia Capes, the die was set for a new concept of warfare, although it was not fully accepted until years later. The Virginia succumbs to the aerial bombardment. The attack is switched to the New Jersey. a once proud dreadnought reduced to an inert mass of metal. The Air Force, now celebrating its 50th anniversary, looks back to an event in its history which added a new maxim to the rules of war. The nation that controls the air controls the sea.
Some men in the service were still highly skeptical of Mitchell's ideas, and many resisted him, but they reluctantly agreed in the end, due to Mitchell's overwhelming public support. Billy Mitchell then started to form his own squadrons, composed of Airco DH-4s, Martin NBS-1s, and SE-5 fighters. Later in 1940, the B-25 Mitchell was made in his honor. Aviation for the common people had two uses, carrying mail and later carrying people. The first mail planes were like the Boeing Model 40 and the mail wing, which was developed in 1927 specifically for this job. The initial problem with passenger planes was that people could get to places by railroad much quicker, and planes just couldn't support such loads until the 1930s. In 1935, the Douglas DC-3 was developed and was the most solid choice for carrying passengers. In conclusion, even though we may have superior technology today, in the military and otherwise, that seems much more interesting and powerful than the old technology, we should always remember the humble beginnings from which modern aviation started and the dedication it took to get to where we are today. Thank you for watching.